Nici Wickes, welcome to Grey Areas.
Hello, Petra.
It is so good to have you here. And look, before we started recording, we made tea and we were laughing and joking and teasing. And I am just truly delighted to have you in my home. Your reputation precedes you.
Oh, dear. I don't know what that means. I know what precede means, but the reputation bit, I'm not so sure.
What it means is that people who have worked with you and who hang out with you and who do projects with you adore you. And they say, Nici is a dream.
Oh.
And she is so delightful to work with, and she is just a wonderful, genuine human person, and you will love chatting to her. So I'm already fulfilled. I'm already happy.
Great. Yeah. Well, the tea is very good.
Yay.
And we're both in pink, so what's not to love?
What is
We're
not?
drinking pink tea.
I know we are. Out of pink
Teacups. What is with us? This is the pink areas.
Man, so good. Best colour in the world. And I noticed that your book,
I know,
which is the excuse. This is why I get to talk to you, because you've got a beautiful book baby that you have birthed into the world. It has a pink spine.
I know. And so I did a spine reveal on Instagram. Most authors do a cover reveal, but I did a spine reveal because I just loved it. So beautiful. And it sits, the older sibling of this one was A Quiet Kitchen. This one's more from A Quiet Kitchen. It was sort of a yellow colour, so I just love it. Yeah.
Yellow and pink.
Yeah, I know. Adorable.
And look, I know the photographer that you worked with, Todd Eyre,
Yeah.
and he is a brilliant photographer.
Yeah.
And there is a photograph of your bottom in this book.
Yes, there is. Look at those cheeks.
Aren't they beautiful?
Yes, I know.
Like a peach.
I love that photograph. And of course, Todd does, because it's so beautifully formed as an image, as all of his photographs are.
With the lines and the
I
sea
know,
and the
all
sky.
of that, the frothy sea and the fact that I just adore being in the ocean. And so Todd was a bit like, oh, do you reckon we could use this? I was like, of course. I didn't see what even the question would be. But I gathered not all women are comfy with their bums.
But
I didn't
book.
mind at this age. Yeah, go for it.
So this is, I even wondered, I thought, how did that play out? Did you go, oh, I love this pic? Or did somebody say, look, Nici, we're thinking of putting your bum in the book, and how do you feel? And it's exactly, it played out like, I adore this photo as well of you.
Yes.
With the splashes on the lens. In fact, you mention in the book going into the sea. You say, thank you, Todd, for his wonderful work and for jumping in, the idea of jumping in the ocean.
Yeah.
With a camera. He's
With a
obviously
camera.
in the sea with a camera.
Yeah, so that was Todd's idea entirely. So I have an idea about what I want to say in this series of books and who I want to say that to. And then and the food obviously is obvious for me. And then Todd just, that's his art, and there's no one better at it in my view. He just has already an image, and he finds his way through to it, So even the setups for photographs in terms of the food, not any of the incidentals, none of them are set up. So there's not let's have you splashing in the water now, Nici, let's have you da-da-da. Todd just said one day, look, what if I brought a waterproof camera down and we jumped in the surf? And I said, sure. And it was a cold winter's day, but it was beautiful, and we got in, and I didn't feel cold the whole time. I swim most days anyway. And Todd just did his work, and I couldn't believe it. I just thought it was magical, because I don't get to see myself in the water. I get to feel what that's like, but I don't get to see it. So that was amazing. So no, and certainly no one goes, oh, should we have this shot or that shot? Now you're just looking at a shot which is the opener for Plenty Good Enough, and that's one of me and they're actually my mother's togs. They were the ones that she had she'd left out at my place from the spa. And so I got, there I was in my towel at this age, big boobs. They get bigger post-menopause.
Wow, okay, I look forward to that.
Yeah, well, you probably had that with pregnancy, but I haven't experienced that. So they just, they fill out. So, there was this shot too, and I love the shot again. I love the lines in it. Todd said, well, I love it. And I said, well, we'll be putting this. And he said, you good with that? I said, yeah. But I will tell you one thing. I said to him, when I actually saw it in the book, I said to him, or maybe maybe in the proofs, I said, should we do a little work on those boobs? They look quite big. And he looked at me and went, Nici, that's not what we do. And I went, you're right. Okay.
And it is confronting to see yourself, because we perceive of ourselves as a certain way.
Oh, I feel like I've got a body like Cameron Diaz used to have.
Isn't that fantastic?
Completely. And it's body dysmorphia in the opposite way than
In
it
the best
usually is.
possible sense.
Exactly. And I also know when I'm 70, I'll look back on this form and think how wondrous it was and so on, you know. So it's nice if we can love them, these vessels. Because right after menopause, it must have been sort of during the hard years, I don't know, we may get to talk to that later, but I do remember catching sight of myself in a full-length mirror in an apartment I was living in, and I saw my mother's body with a saggy stomach and the sort of the line and there's a very pear shape and it really distressed me in that brief moment. And that was, I would say, Petra, one of the very few times in my life where I have not admired, I don't spend time admiring my body, but I hated on my body in that moment. Because it looked like an older woman and I didn't feel like that. And I just remember catching myself and thinking, oh, let's not go there, sweetie, because you've got a lot of years now to get through and things are only going to start looking different. I'm not even going to say worse. So you best not go there. But it gave me an insight to people who live in a body that they don't enjoy for whatever reason. And I've never, thankfully, had that as an affliction.
It's amazing, isn't it, that we all have different afflictions.
We do.
And I love that your experience of not having that affliction really opens a window for somebody like me who has been very harsh. I think a script that I adopted quite young was, if I am fatter or carrying weight, then I hate myself. That's the appropriate thing to do. And if I am trimmer or not carrying weight, I can like myself.
Oh,
and that is
so big, isn't it?
It's such a big script and so problematic.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it's not who I am or how I am in the world or how I treat other people or my contribution or anything. It's this externalized thing.
You're not in yourself, you're outside of yourself looking at that. And at least 3 times a day, you are perhaps having an experience where you're needing to eat but controlling that or feeling shamed about that or, you know, whatever that might be.
Seeing yourself in the mirror or getting dressed or something doesn't clip up or zip up or fit the way it used to, and you're like, wow, that's a sign, isn't it? Because the script of carrying weight has had so many other negative connotations attached to it. It's been like the moral and character failing of our age.
Yeah. And really of females predominantly. I don't often have discussions with men about what they're eating, what they haven't eaten, are they trying to lose weight, etc. So let's not spend too much time talking about it now.
No.
Then that's just us doing it again.
No, we're not going to. And it has been a joy of this age to love myself, whatever shape and size I am, whatever weight I'm carrying or not carrying. I've gone, okay, so I am worthy of love, whatever my physique.
And for the first time in my life with age, I have actively been trying to drop some weight for the reasons not of vanity or what I look like, but because I've got some physiological indicators that are no longer working for me. So cardiovascular, cholesterol, I'm luckily okay on the glucose front, but I had to really confront that because I've always felt it so unfeminist to try and lose weight. I really have.
Yeah, I hear you.
And yet when I was told by the medical profession, and I've written in books, you know, only care about what you are eating or trying to lose weight if you've got physiological, you know, indicators. So suddenly when I was being told that I needed to be on statins, I was like, oh, okay. So I am on statins because I do love to eat fatty things.
I don't know what statins are.
Oh, statins are, cholesterol lowering
okay.
things. So I've tried for a while to be a bit more dairy free, but I just can't do it. So I thought, oh, for goodness sake, But I did notice that I, for the first time, had some shame around a bad eating day. I would lie in bed going, oh, I shouldn't have eaten those things. Not for how I look, not for how much I weigh, but because I know that's not doing my heart any good. So, at that time I remember thinking, okay, I've given up drinking in my life because I knew it wasn't doing me any favours, so we can do this about food too, and I've done that successfully.
Wow, you've given up caffeine?
Caffeine was a long time ago, yeah.
Okay.
So I once I realised that I suffer a bit from anxiety and that, I went, oh, caffeine's not good, and caffeine's terrible for menopause, I think too. So yeah, I've had one coffee, proper coffee, in about the last 12 years. Yeah, and it really, I had a really productive day. And I was so pleased that the woman who served it to me, who's a friend down at our local coffee shop, when I went to order a second one, she delivered the second one and she said, oh, Nici, and she sat down beside me and she said, I hate to tell you, but that first one was actually caffeinated. She said, I cannot fathom why I gave you a caffeinated coffee. And I was so pleased she told me, because the rest of the day I was pretty sort of on edge, but I knew why, and very alert. And had I not had that, I would have worried a little bit about that. Yeah. I was emphatic the whole day. I was sort of, telling people this, that, the other. Yeah.
I love that's an example of we can handle something a little bit harder or a little bit different if we can understand it.
Yes.
We have more capacity around a challenging feeling and or behaviour.
Oh, that's so true.
If we've got some sense making.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That is entirely and utterly true. When we don't know what something is, we can't name it, or when we don't know when it's going to end.
Yeah.
I've had this with back problems. I used to have a terrible back, and I didn't understand it, and it seemed to rear its head and not, and I've had depression and anxiety. And when I didn't understand those things, it felt very never-ending for me. Whereas, this week, what are we on? We're sort of midweek, and I've a couple of days ago, I had a really bad day where, nothing, I haven't done anything with my life. Oh, I'm useless. One of those days you do. And they sometimes they're triggered, and sometimes I think they just come out of nowhere. The weather was bad, whatever. But the difference between me now at 58 and perhaps my 30 or 40-year-old self would have gone into quite a spiral over that, and would have exhausted myself even more, wondering why I'm feeling, oh my goodness, what shall I be doing? And blaming myself for it. Was I just manage these days to hold it a little bit more lightly and go, that'll probably pass. And look, it's 2 days later, I can barely remember the state, Petra.
Amazing.
I mean, how ridiculous. I was so in it, I couldn't remember another state. But, yeah.
I absolutely bloody love that, because I do think for some personality types, I'm not sure if this is everybody. When I am low, I'm like, this is it. This is life. This is forever.
Yeah.
I'll never feel any differently. And when I'm high, I'm like, winning. This is it. This is forever. I'll always. And now that I am 52,
right,
I'm like, okay, this is not going to last forever, this low. Oh, this high, this will pass.
Yeah.
I will struggle again, or I will have a challenge again.
Yeah.
And I do kind of appreciate the ability, like you were saying, even, like you called it stopping your spiral. It's almost like I kind of put my hand underneath the thought and hold it, like catch the thought on the way down.
Oh, that's nice.
And create a pause where I just check my narrative, which is rather than you haven't done it, you failed again, oh my gosh, when will you ever learn? What is going, something has to change. I go, I'm still worthy of love.
Yeah.
I actually have started saying I still love myself.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've ever listened to any of Mo Gaudat. Am I saying his? So he's a great guy. He does the Happiness Project or something like that. He used to be head of Google. He's done a couple of great podcasts, and one that I remember him talking about is if you can just remember on those bad days that your mind is just another organ. Your brain is just like, do I believe things my skin tells me? Yes, sometimes. Do I think about my kidney on a day? Not really. Your brain is honestly just another one of those. And so he will say that if you get up and you feel like you're having one of those days, sit down and reason with your brain. Oh, what evidence have you got that I'm hopeless and that I'm, and now I go, brain's having that day. Just like, I'm a bit itchy today, or I'm whatever. It's just another organ. And somehow rather the science of that really thrills me, that I can reason with it in that same way.
You can have an intelligent, emotionally intelligent conversation with yourself.
And that's probably very similar to you're putting a little sort of leveler underneath the thought, rather than just letting yourself become the thought.
Yes. You are not your brain.
I know. And I mean, I wonder, is this just an age thing? Oh, I'm sure
you mean the joy of discovering that we're not our brains?
The joy of discovery, yeah. Could we teach this to younger people, or does that then somehow rather, I don't know, take something away from us growing and learning these struggles? I don't know. Yeah.
Because anyway, there are definitely two tracks that I want to follow, and one is the cold water, and one is probably the pressure of things getting hard enough to make us make a change.
Yeah.
So you've talked about hopping in and this, like, your book is just so
This one's very watery, isn't it?
So watery. There's so many photos of you in the sea.
Yeah.
And there's talk of things that you do, little things that make a difference. And more I'm focusing on what small changes do I make that makes life more doable, more joyful, more peaceful, more compassionate.
Yeah.
And when I'm able to make a change like that, or create a small sustainable habit, wow, it creates space. So is cold water and swimming in the sea something like that for you?
Absolutely it is. I love to swim. I love to be in the water, and I think I used to hold kind of unconsciously some grief when summer was getting cooler, and then you'd sort of go for that last swim in maybe March if you were lucky, and you'd think, I guess it's just going to get too cold now. So one year I just carried on, sort of after some encouragement from a friend who does it up in Mangawhai, and I just love it. And I don't do it daily because that would be another rod for me.
It would be a rule that you then failed or succeeded.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, I hear.
So instead I go when I can, which is generally about 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 times a week.
About daily.
But it's never about daily. So it's just year round. And but and there's a whole lot of science around it, but the science as I understand it goes like this. We hold a lot of adrenaline in our lives now because we're constantly, you and I, though we might be enjoying this or we might like being on stage or whatever, that spikes the adrenaline. It's an enjoyable stimulus for us, but nonetheless it still takes our adrenaline up there. And in life we've got pings going off on our phone or da-da-da-da-da. So our adrenaline and cortisol levels kind of sit at a constantly high level, and they shouldn't. They should cycle through us, So by cold water swimming, that's what it does. You get kind of like, I don't want to do this, like I never want to do it. Never. No, it doesn't matter how many times I do it. I know I'm going to do it now, but I never want to do it. I just think, okay, I'll go for a swim, and I'm getting down there and my brain's going, well, why do I even do this, and then I get in the water, and instantly when I'm in the water, something has happened to my physiology, and I think it's that cortisol gets flushed out, and you come out, everything feels warm, and I feel incredibly relaxed. So it really is a great anxiety medicine for that. I think it's really good if you can do it regularly. Cold shower will do the trick. I don't think there's anything about staying in the water for a particular amount of time or breathing in a certain way. I dip in, I dip out. Sometimes I stay in a bit longer and I get out. I've also said to people, I feel as though if you said to yourself, I'm going to whack myself on the head with a fry pan every morning, I actually think it would probably have the same thing, because there's anxiety about there's something that I don't want to do, but I'm going to do it, bang, and then, it's over. And I think you'd just feel fantastic. But let's not try that one. The water is pleasant, yeah. So yes, I think it's scientific and it's emotional and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
So, for example, I live at a beach also. I live on the coast at Port Waikato, and we're suffering from extreme erosion at the moment, as so many places in New Zealand. But by going in the water, it also sort of cleanses me of that anxiety or that worry, because, in fact, the council the other week, because they were clearing a house on one of the cliffs, sort of closed the beach, and I went down for my swim, and somebody said to me, "Oh, the beach is closed, you know." And I just looked at them and said, "Only the beach can close itself." Because I was like, "Are you crazy? It's just the beach, and the beach will keep on doing what the beach does."
Nature is bigger.
Nature is much, much bigger than us, so it's quite good to immerse yourself in that often, I think.
I agree. I agree. And I went through a season of dipping into our pool
good.
after every run all year round, and then I stopped running. And so I was like, so I've swapped to cold showers. So I have a lovely hot shower.
Yeah.
And if I can possibly remember, I turn it to cold at the end, and I turn it to slightly cold, and I hold my boobs so that my nips don't freak out. And then I turn it to friggin' freezing. And it's just like, and I try and calm my breathing, and sometimes I'm like exclaim,
Yeah, that's all good.
It's like, and it's just wonderful.
It just wakes you up.
Invigorating. I feel my whole body feels warm, just
all of
like
your
you say.
cells are also alive and sort of doing what they're meant to do, I think.
And then I feel like I'm able to be calmer and more focused in the world. So I do love it. I just have to remember to do it.
Yeah, okay.
That's a little challenge for
Yeah,
me.
sure.
So you are, I guess, in this book, more from a quiet kitchen. There's a bit of a challenge even in the title, because there's lots of talk about living in a noisy world, like a lot of things vying for our attention, our time, our money. And this idea that cooking for yourself as a person who lives with yourself, or cooking for two, and that sense of, I guess, what I would call calm or peace or quiet is quite pervasive in the book.
Yeah.
But it's not without action. Like, to live peacefully is not to live in stasis.
No. Yeah, and I love the way you say that I'm living with myself. I love that. That's so much nicer. I'm going to use that.
Yay.
Rather than living, I talk about living solo rather than living alone, or I'm single or something like that. Those words don't feel right for me, but living with myself definitely does. And a lot, when I wrote the first in this series, A Quiet Kitchen, people who knew me really well, or knew me maybe from a while ago, or even my family, sort of laughed.
They were like, what do you mean quiet?
Ha ha ha, because, I'm so verbose. But
vivacious,
and
vibrant.
all of that, and I am all of those things, and I'm not. And it's really important, I think, again, it's those nuance with people, that people are never as they seem all the time. So, for example, of course, when I'm out, I'm vivacious and chatty and all of that. That's why I'm out. But I spend probably 75% of my time at home alone with my cat, and I really enjoy that. And that's a very grounding place for me. And I get easily distracted by the world. I'm so curious about people, and I adore people, but it also exhausts me. So I can't sort of hold my own very well around people. I come from a large family, so I wonder if that's, you're sort of always being pulled in every direction, or you're part of a group. So I wonder if that was harder for me to hold on to my sense of self. I'm not sure.
That makes perfect sense
Does
to
it?
me,
Yeah.
because you said you were a middle child.
Yes,
too.
I am, yeah.
And so if you're constantly reading the room, say you're emotionally aware, and you're reading the room and you're trying to make sure everyone's okay, then you're not considering, are you okay? Because your role in that family is to keep everybody okay.
Yes. Not that anybody asks you to do that, but there's something in that, absolutely. So the peacekeeper, I used to be like that at school, and groups of friends and that sort of thing as well. And so it has taken me a long time to centre on myself, and maybe finding myself alone. Maybe that's when, I was going to use an expression that they use for Ireland, maybe that's when the troubles began.
So were you okay with your own company when you first found yourself on your own? Was that a place that you, because I was somebody who never, if there was nobody at my flat, I didn't go home.
Oh, didn't you?
I just went to a cafe.
Bless.
Yeah.
Oh, I probably did exactly the opposite. So if I turned up and could see there were people at home, I went to a cafe.
So you could be alone in company,
So I could
whereas
be
I needed
alone.
to be
Oh,
Yeah.
how very interesting.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
not able to be with myself on my own easily.
Okay, no, that's my favourite time.
Okay.
And I can remember that from years ago when sisters were doing their thing or whatever. And I mean, I probably wanted to play with them all the time, but that isn't always what's possible. So I would go and climb trees and do my own thing. So in a sense, I think it's a well practiced defense mechanism for me to be on my own. I get to avoid rejection. I get to avoid not feeling like I fit in or belong because I sort of take myself away first before that can happen. I do think that. So it's people often say, "Oh, you're so courageous to live on your own." Yes, and can I be bothered? Is life long enough for me to look at why I do that? I'm not sure.
I kind of love the fact that you acknowledge your ability to be social and to love people and your ability to really know how to resource yourself and the stresses on you in company. So your way of being in the world is to provide what you need rather than change yourself or fix yourself or stop yourself being a certain way.
Well, I think COVID really made me wake up to this. So I have always tried to be more sociable than I actually felt like being.
Okay.
And so COVID came along and I didn't realise it, but I heaved a huge sigh of relief because now I couldn't compare myself to anybody else. No one was allowed to go out. This was perfect. I wasn't the odd one out.
Didn't have to feel guilty.
No, it was fantastic. I didn't have to cancel things or not turn up at things or say no or go. And then, I've been to so many parties in my life where I have driven or ridden my bike away and thought, that was nice, but could have stayed at home. And it's nothing about the company. I mean, I would hate for anyone to listen to that and go, oh, well, that's lovely, But it's just... I don't often need that sense of fulfillment. I'm just so happy being at home, or I'm happy being unhappy at home. That's another thing, So I do think there's a bit of a danger now when I find myself unhappy. I do really look at my isolating techniques of, I don't want to have anything to do with anyone because I want to kind of fix myself and get back to being brilliant, bubbly Nici before I then turn up again. And I don't do that as much as I used to. You can just take me as you find me. Yeah.
That's good,
because
Don't you think that's age?
Absolutely.
You're just like, I've walked that road. I know what's at the end of that road and it's not for me.
It's not for me, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing with age. And I also think I just call them your lady hormones. And once they've gone, I think we do become... I guess by merit of that, more male in that I don't care so much about what people think of me. And I'm not saying that as a blanket, am I, of men? But maybe I am. We are givers, we are nurturers. You don't have to be a mother to do that. I mean, I'm a very motherly person and I care about other people.
Estrogen is powerful.
Totally. So when that diminished, I just didn't care really so much about anyone. And I likewise, you also through that time have a relative drop in testosterone as well. And so one of the things I noticed was I was devoid of ambition, and I've always been quite ambitious and competitive. And when that was gone, I also felt very listless. That was the hormone. That's the one I've really missed, probably, out of all of the hormones, as I've really missed the testosterone in terms of having ideas and thinking about the next thing and da-da-da-da-da. That's gradually coming back, but certainly all the nice hormones, the things that made me nice and privileging others above myself, those sort of have gone. It's quite lovely.
Quite joyous, isn't it?
It is quite lovely.
Joyous, 'cause you can
I don't know what it's like for other people. I don't know what it's like for people living with people. I mean, that doesn't impact so much.
Just ask a man.
Okay.
Ask it how it is for him.
Right.
How is he just like kind of living in a straightforward way?
Yeah, in a straightforward way. Yeah.
I said this.
So uncomplicated. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
not all men, obviously.
Not all men. We can't say that, but we also want to not get into this thing of not also generalising when it is true. The other thing I've noticed, I'll just mention this while I can in case it goes my brain. I've noticed something really interesting about hot flushes, and I've never heard anybody else speak about it. When I now say yes to something I meant no to, I get a hot flush. And I think that's really interesting. Or when I feel myself suppressing some anger, it'll come out in a hot flush, and it's really like clockwork. And so I think that is one of the most magical things for menopause, is you get these bodily reminders. Oh, hang on a minute, you need to be true to you. You need to look after yourself. So yes, I can absolutely feel it in my body now. It will generate a hot flush. It's not just I'm a bit flushed with anger. It's a hot flush.
That is fascinating that you say that, because I have noticed a correlation between feeling maybe embarrassed or vulnerable or exposed and a sudden rise in temperature.
Interesting.
And I'm now going to look with curiosity as to if I say yes to something I mean no to. Because I'm always looking for, what is my cue? Because it's so easy and habitual to say yes for me. That saying no, the first clue or the best clue I have that I don't want to do something is that I don't say yes easily. I pause.
Right, great.
And then I start wrestling with myself. You probably ought to say yes, or you should say no. And no is so hard, but why? You could say yes, but can you say no? So now I'm like, okay, the pause has some information in it.
Great, yes, that is so true. Just to take a moment for yourself to make sure of it. Yeah.
But I'm going to check the temperature.
Check the temperature. I think I was really fascinated when I started noticing that. I was like, whoa. Now it happens less often because, of course, I'm further through it, and my no is much more prevalent now than it would have been at the beginning of menopause or perimenopause or whatever all the stages
It does make me feel very privileged that you said yes to coming and chatting with us.
And it was an absolute full body yes. So just recently, in the last month this has played out, someone asked me to do an interview for a magazine. I've never done this in my life. It's really unprofessional, and I feel embarrassed almost talking about it. But this guy's been chasing me for a while to do this interview. And he wanted to come down, he wanted to bring a photographer. I only mostly work with Todd. It's just easy, and I can't be bothered working with anybody else sometimes.
He's your guy.
He's my guy, and it's just easier. And he wanted to bring this other guy down, and we've gone back and forth, and I just never got around to saying no. And now, it was sort of down to 2 weeks, and then a week, and then I went to Australia, and I just actually never got back to the guy. For a while, it was like, oh yeah, and that's the first time I've ever done that. So this is practice for me. Like, that's incredibly unprofessional. I just should have listened to I really can't be bothered doing this. And I just should have said to him, look, I'm not really up for it at the moment.
Yeah. And it's good to know that we're still figuring it out, right?
Still
that
figuring it out,
you don't turn towards yourself and say, hey, Petra, tell me, can we just think about this for a minute?
Yeah.
You know that you're allowed to say no.
You're allowed to say no. That's right.
Like I'm waiting. Sometimes I look out and I go, who are you waiting for to give you permission to either say yes to something, to try something, for me to take action on my own behalf of an idea that I've had that risks failing and exposing me as this person who has a bad idea, big whoops. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. You tried that worked. You tried that, didn't.
Whatever, yeah.
Or to say no. My former self would have done all 3 of those gigs in 3 different cities on 3 different days. But new me says, do you know what? I'm just going to do 2 different gigs in 2 different cities, and I'm going to say no to the 3rd.
Great. Yeah, absolutely, because I need the recovery time. You know yourself. And if we don't know ourselves by now, if you're still doing a lot of things by obligation, then please stop. And it doesn't mean we're turning into these self-centered people or da-da-da. It's not about that. It's just putting your mask on first so you can help others later. Because I've just got the helpy gene.
Same.
I mean, do you know what?
Yeah.
I can hear of anyone in strife right now. You could say to me, oh, look, I talked to someone in Hamilton yesterday. They need such and such. And honestly, all of my DNA will suddenly be like, well, I could help. I don't know this person, but I could help. I mean, come on. That's probably a word. It's probably a syndrome.
Let's not make it a syndrome. I love the helpy gene.
Yeah, it's the helpy gene.
I've started to call it like the saviour complex. But
saviour.
Not an extreme version, but like I realised that I was feeling really guilty. Like it was my responsibility to help people who I wasn't very close friends with, but who were suffering in some way. And feeling terrible that I wasn't being useful or helpful. And then I had a friend very close to me who I really did, and it was good to help and support and very appropriate. Mm-hmm. She's my person.
Yeah.
One of my people. And I thought, this is how it works. We have our people. And when our people need us, we rally around them, and they would rally around me.
Yes.
But this person over here, I can provide some auxiliary something, and I did, gift baskets, like contributed to things that were non-invasive but loving and supportive from an appropriate distance.
Yeah.
But actually, they weren't waiting for me to show up.
No, not at all. And in fact, I think those instances are, well, for me anyway, are very ego-driven. They're actually just about me, which is the saviour complex. Because I'll put my hand up to help anyway. What am I, stupid? I don't have enough time for my own friends who would probably like me to be in their lives more than I am. So I think you're right. I think to keep a really close eye on, if I'm privileging that person, then it means I might be underprivileging that part of my circle or whatever.
And it feels to me like getting my sense of responsibility into a healthy space.
Yeah.
Like not being overly responsible to complete strangers or loose acquaintance, but actually being able to be responsible for the people who I do care about and cherish and who I am responsible to.
Yeah.
Like so often as a friend, you'll say, if there's anything I can do, let me know. But when you are in need, I think as a Kiwi woman, I am not able to ask, I'd love a meal. I need soup. I need you to drop this off to the such and such. I need you to come and visit me. Yeah. So what is it as a friend who is in touch with their sense of responsibility and who has the helpy gene that just decides to, I will make you a meal and drop it off, and I don't care if you don't need it. It's fine if you don't need it. You'll probably eat it anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Or or is it my responsibility to say, I need help?
Oh, it's so tricky. I don't know, because I'm with you on that, and this is the big problem. When are we going to get to the point where when we're in the doldrums, we can ask for help? And even when I say that to you, this little voice in my brain just said to me, yeah, but no one will be able to help in those times.
Ooh.
So there's this arrogance. And when somebody mentioned the word arrogance to me years ago, or I read it or whatever, I thought it was a really good one for me to hear, that you would think that no one else is going to be able to help you in this moment, because that's how people feel when they are isolated. That's why we have a high suicide rate, is because people really thought no one could help, which is an arrogance in itself. Someone may be able to help. Someone probably will be able to help. But less so, but I will not probably pick up the phone weeping in tears, because I'll know that I'm going to get over this, and so what's the point of doing that now? But I might tell a friend that I had a really bad time the last couple of days. I don't know what that's about. I don't know. And if we could start doing that more, I think it would be really good for the country. I have a theory that our country is built on stoicism, from either Indigenous who came here also by boat, or other people who sailed from around the world. And so, there's a lot of hardship in doing that. You've got to be pretty stoic. A whole lot of people on the boat talking about their feelings or how miserable they are is not really going to work. You're sort of in it as a team. Come on, we're pioneering, we are travellers, we are navigating our way to this unseen, far-off place. I don't know that there's a lot of gentle spirit going on in that time, especially for Pākehā, New Zealand. Yeah. Anyway, there's a stoicism about that. Yeah. Don't let the side down.
And perhaps I could form a habit where I am able to reach out.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Like somebody said, I'll make you soup. We had a busy month. I'll make you soup. And somebody else said, yes, I'll make you soup too. I just didn't respond to either message.
Right.
I just didn't say that would be wonderful.
Aha.
They made a specific offer and I still couldn't say, yep.
So maybe some homework is the next time someone offers you food, say yes. Because I have started doing that and it's been marvellous. Yeah,
really?
Friends, I've got a good friend down at Port Waikato and she's a great cook. And at first, sort of newly in our friendship, I would say, no, it's fine. I would lie and say, no, I've already had dinner, or I've whatever. I mean, I love cooking. But now I say, yes, that would be great. And then still when I say it, it's still a little bit funny in my tummy. I'm still like, oh God. But I don't owe her anything from that. I do it to her and she says yes. Imagine if she always said no when I offered them food.
I know.
That would be terrible. So we have to allow
Rejection.
the love. Exactly.
Allow the love.
Yeah, allow the love, people. Yeah.
Allow the love.
Yeah.
and I guess I wanted to touch on the fact that you said you had wrestled with yourself. You're both achieved so much. You know, when you look at it externally, you edited magazines, you've made television shows, you've done cookbooks, and yet it wasn't until you hit sort of perimenopause, menopause, when living with the state of anxiety you did, really that pushed you to the edge of taking some action on your own behalf. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I was living in Ponsonby at the time. I did have my place at Port Waikato, and I was sort of splitting myself between the two places. And I just remember realising that I was miserable more of the time than I ought to have been. And I think that maybe through the stoicism, I also had good support around me. You know, I've had the same therapist for many years. And I think also I've had a wonderful upbringing, loving parents, loving family, good friends. So there's also something about,
what's wrong with you?
I should just be able to pull myself out of this. And I think in the drinking days, which were prior to sort of 40 and a half, I probably just went out and got kind of hammered at those times when I was feeling like that. Not as a deliberate measure, but that would, arise. And I'd go out and get really drunk, I suppose, and that would start off another chain of events, which would be a hangover. And then...
But then at least you've got a reason to feel so bad.
And then I would feel subsequently better for that, or else, maybe I'd form a crush on someone, and then that would take it on its own drama, or something like that. So there was all these external things. When I stripped all of those things away, when I stopped drinking alcohol, that also stopped lots of the crushes, funnily enough.
Wow.
I know, it was interesting. Yeah, crushes, one night stands, I sort of stopped all of that because I wasn't interested. And again, it was just all the drama kind of died off, so I was left with myself. And menopause was kicking in from age 43. And I had terrible adrenal fatigue, so I was very tired all of the time. So I was really miserable, and my thoughts were, but the menopause bit was the negativity, and I've always been quite a positive person. So, and I just started mentioning that, and I think friends started really noticing it. And so a couple of really good friends sort of mentioned gently, would you think about taking antidepressants? And I was I did the old, no, I don't have a problem with people taking it. I don't feel as though it's stigmatized, but I don't feel like that's what's going on for me or whatever. I don't know why. And then, I don't know, it got so bad that I then gave it a crack, and I've never looked back, and I will take them forever, I presume.
I feel so great.
And I remember saying to friends too, this was my big fear, was if I become that grinning fool whose life is falling down around their ears, and yet I'm going, everything's fine, because I thought that's what antidepressants did, was just made everything fine. It's not like that at all. It just gives you enough of a baseline that then you can start building on the things that you know to do to keep yourself afloat.
Eat well.
Yeah. Or
have a swim. Move your body outside. Connect with your friends
have
when you
great
need to.
Sleep.
Read a
Blah,
book.
blah, 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 blah. Understand that this is life, etc.
It's good and bad, hard and easy.
All of that, yeah. So that all kind of collided. But it was a big decision for me. And I was somebody who'd been, very open about other people taking, I absolutely was fine with everybody else doing it. But not, but for me, but actually what I would say is that I also felt as though, what if I take some medication and it doesn't work?
Okay.
Because it seems like a last resort, but what I'd like to say to anyone listening is treat it as your first resort. Treat it as a resort.
A resort.
It's great. Go to the resort. It's great. And I still have emotional days. I still have times. It has not solved everything in my life, but it certainly is a great thing. And don't leave it till it's the last thing. Otherwise, you can delay it for longer than you need to, because you sort of think, what if that doesn't work, then what? So there's a kind of like, well, I've still got that trick in my bag.
For some people it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know with people who are having significant perimenopausal problems, sometimes the antidepressants don't work, because what they're needing is some other kind of a levelling and support in their body.
Okay.
Can I ask about loneliness, because it's a big issue for people, and you probably have, and we've touched on it, this beautiful perspective of, like, for me, I've had to learn to enjoy my own company, and I have literally learnt to love being on my own as an actual extrovert. Like I would have said 10 out of 10 And yet I would, looking back, notice where I would be in a big party and I would leave the party and go somewhere. Like I remember there being a party at the neighbours and coming home because I'd forgotten something and being at home and going, I can breathe.
Right.
So this growing need to be able to resource and really just the need to be comfortable, to be on my own.
I think that would be a great thing to be taught in schools, how to be alone and enjoy it. So I've also learnt how to be alone because, again, I used to score 10 out of 10 on all extroversion things. I was, by all accounts, but I wasn't being that honest with myself because I thought you were one or the other and I just wasn't being enough of the other sort of thing. So I love to be on my own because it does help me to sort of ground myself. I wanted to write these books because I wasn't seeing anybody else write about living with myself, living alone, living solo, and enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I love it but I don't love it all the time. 20% of the time, I probably do feel lonely and like I've done something wrong. I should have found a wife, a husband, had some kids. I don't know what people do, but
all that other stuff.
But I'm also going to make the assumption that if you're in a marriage with children, you spend
20% of the time you
thinking, I wonder if I should have done just my own thing.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't think it's that. So yes, I still experience loneliness, but loneliness is really different to solitude. So I think if we can learn to live and be connected with ourselves in the first place, then you'll never have an alone day in your life, really, because you've got company, you've got yourself, but you've got to learn to love you and all of you. And so I've done that really effectively. And I do enjoy it. I'm great company for myself, much less for other people sometimes. And then I can go out and seek that company when I need it. So I hear a lot about the epidemic of loneliness, and then what generally follows on from that is how we need to get people connected to others, into groups and all of that. And that just makes me feel like, no, that's the wrong approach. It's just that's an easier approach. That's a sort of quick fix, if you like, but you've got to get a sense of belonging in yourself first. So I belong here, right here. This is home. Not the group, the club, the family. This is home, me. And if that can sort of be taken care of, then that takes care of loneliness, I believe.
And that actually is a secure foundation from which to go and connect with others. Because we don't live outside of community. You talk to the people who make your coffee. They sit down at your table and say, so sorry, it's not decaf.
Yeah.
You share a meal or somebody cooks for you or you cook for somebody. But because you have found home within, that is your solid ground.
Yeah. It really is now. And it wasn't, again, until COVID and we were all locked down and me locked down with myself. I was in my own bubble and I realised how pleased I was for all the work I've done. I mean, my 30s and a lot of my 40s were not contented. They were discontented with me feeling like I ought to be able to find a partner. There was something wrong with me.
Something missing.
Yeah, something missing. And now I don't, yes, I think there's something missing by normative standards, but there's something, I think you don't get everything.
No, and it's not missing, is it? Because, I mean, the standards are too narrow. It's not missing.
It's crazy.
This is a valuable, valid,
Yeah.
beautiful life that you are living.
Absolutely. If I was a monk, are there monkesses? There's nuns. That's right. They live very much in community, but we sometimes really like the solo journey of someone. It's sort of held up there, but
in other
contexts,
contexts,
in another context, but really we always feel as though there's something wrong with somebody. Who could you not find someone? Did someone not find you? Were you too picky? For years I just heard those things, and I tortured myself with the same things, like, maybe I am too picky, But I think if I asked you, were you not picky with your husband?
I feel it.
And then I would come back from lovely holidays that I took myself on, and people would say, there was one friend in particular, and I would wait for it to happen, and then she would say, did you meet anyone? And it would make me feel like my whole holiday had been a bit of a failure because, no, I didn't. It's not what I went for. I'm not saying sometimes there wasn't a little hope in my heart that maybe the romance would happen. I don't know. I'm a girl who likes to read girly books, so yeah, you know. But when it didn't happen, it feels like that's a failure. Why focus on that? So then I started to think, well, and so I said to her once, she hasn't said it since, when I said, look, if you went away with your husband, I wouldn't, when you come back, say, did you think about divorce? I wouldn't say that. So why are you saying this about me? You know, so I think it's something that I've now, and these books have been amazing for me to really grow into and kind of own and stand behind that space that I now really delight in. Absolutely. It did take a world pandemic and everyone to close their doors, but there you go.
And can I say I have just loved reading the offerings that you make before each section, and each section of recipes, it's like, this is why. So fiscal responsibility, here's your recipes.
Yeah, right.
And treating and treasuring yourself, here's your recipes.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a gift, I think, you sharing yourself in these pages. And I could talk for a lot longer with you because we've talked about, you know, we haven't talked, we're going to have to stop soon.
I wanted to write a recipe book too on that served one or two.
Yeah.
Because that was the other thing, was that I was
Where are those?
Where are those? And I've written, you know, for Women's Weekly and different magazines and different cookbooks where it's stock standard serves 4 to 6 generally. And yet that wasn't what I was cooking at home. I wasn't cooking those quantities. And then you look at books that are serves one and they're awfully austere and quite boring food. And, you know, people would say, oh, yes, but it's hard to make a roast dinner for one. Well, no, just pop a little, you know, joint of chicken in there and make your gravy and do this and do that. And so I really wanted to share my love for food and cooking and not have it sort of reduced to, oh, yeah, but I live on my own now and, you know, so I don't really do much cooking. And I just think that's terribly sad. And since these books have come up, I can't tell you the number of women, mostly women, some men actually, I won't say all women, who've stopped me on the street and said, oh, my goodness, you know, I lost my husband or wife years ago and I'd really gotten into that rut of just cheese on toast or an omelette for dinner. And now with your book, I just make all these gorgeous recipes.
So my relationship with food has been that it was always needed and I never had the confidence. I haven't been confident in the kitchen. So cooking hasn't been a joy. It's been this thing that I could get wrong. So there's a recipe and if I didn't have an ingredient, stressful. And if it didn't turn out, stressful. And I'm writing blind. I'm trying to do this and I don't know if it's going to work. And if it doesn't work, that definitely says something about me.
Okay.
So the moment of freedom has come when I made up recipes for my children. And I was like, oh, there's no expectation. There's nothing to get wrong. I would eat this. This is yum. And it was like this turning and also watching my daughter who's quite adept in the kitchen. And she's like, oh, I don't have this. I'll use yogurt or
Great.
a lemon and I'm like, wow, I'm just going to substitute chickpeas. And I'm like, gosh. And so seeing her joy and freedom has sort of given me a little bit more of a, you know, take the pressure down.
Oh, I love that. Yay to your daughter and yay to you.
And you see cooking as a gift you give yourself.
Absolutely. And look, I wanted to share food because it is my gift that I've been given. It's my superpower to go, oh, I don't have that, but I'll do that. It's my superpower to go, oh, I need to come up with 4 recipes by next week. Easy, you know, sort of thing. And I know when I have a failure that it is dispiriting. So I realise what it's like for some people who have that all the time and who also are in a position where they perhaps are expected to produce a meal for a family, for example, 7 days a week.
Night after night.
When I've been a stepmother at times in my life, which has been twice, that has been a boring time for food because often kids don't like what you want to eat, etc. So I get that. And so my recipes are aimed at people who have a pantry full of food and a fridge that's got some food in it, and that you can use what you've got in some ways. Because I live rurally, I can't drop down to the supermarket. Right. So people often will say, Gosh, that was so yummy. But I had all the ingredients in the house because these books kind of came out of first COVID, and now I realise because I live rurally, you don't have to have exciting and exacting ingredients or techniques. You just make what you've got.
I love your talk about shortcuts.
Shortcuts. And I'll always have food that's forgiving, and that's really from a TV background where I was doing a TV show where things had to be stopped, started. So they couldn't be very exacting. And I didn't like food waste, which doesn't really go with the TV industry either. So I would like to make something that could sit there for a while and then be reheated or could be slowed down, sped up, and yeah, I'm sloppy in the kitchen, so I want that sloppiness to be a freedom for others. Yeah.
I love the joyfulness of that.
Yeah.
My everything salad.
I'm glad that you've found
I'm definitely
some joyfulness in it. Yeah. That's great.
And I think I can mine into that. I can lean into that.
Absolutely.
I can mine the joyfulness.
Yeah.
Okay. So much joy inside this book.
Thank
you for making it. Thank you for making it with servings for 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So good. Everybody else can multiply if they want.
They can multiply.
If they want to multiply, people.
Enough of the dividing.
Exactly. Let's multiply. And I wanted to talk about you being too much and loud, and I have a last question. So you now feel more comfortable to bring your full self. Like
Yes.
women can be told that they're too much. I think of myself as too much sometimes.
Yeah.
And yet I know I'm not even enough. Like I'm enough, but I'm not enough.
Yeah,
and
I
I'm too
hear
much.
you.
It's hard to ricochet between.
This is our life. And I'm really sorry if I'm overpowering for some people. And, if that's the case, please tell me in a quiet moment. Like, I'm open to hearing that as well. In fact, I had a dream the other night that somebody said that I used too many words. I don't know whether I was writing or presenting or what I was doing, but I was like, oh no, yes, I do. So let's work with that and figure out how we can make that work for both of us.
Yeah.
And
I'm up for hearing that somebody needs me to be gentle in a space.
Yeah.
My husband prefers it when I don't swear. And I try quite hard not to.
Yeah.
So like sort of I don't fart and burp, and that is quite hard not to do that.
Oh, I wonder what the things are that I try not to do. Well, I'm greedy, so I often have to hold back at a sort of a shared lunchy thing. I can't be bothered with that. That sort of really annoys me because I just want to eat 6 or 7 club sandwiches.
So delicious.
1 or 2 is never enough.
Never.
But there you go. Yeah.
Well, can I just say that you sparkle. You absolutely sparkle. It is such a joy and a pleasure to sit and in your company and hear some of your story, your beautiful, wonderful story of how you live with yourself soulfully and deliciously.
And on the unsparkly days.
And on the unsparkly days, you can give yourself a hug and say this too will pass.
Yeah.
What would your 80-year-old self say to you?
Spend more time with your parents. I spend lots of time with my parents, but spend more time with your parents. Get rid of half of the stuff that you've got and then halve that. Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of my 80-year-old self looking at myself now, in terms of emotional capacity, they'd say, great, you're on the right track, keep on keeping on. But there's some other practical things. I do think that I think life will go on forever. And my parents are in their mid-80s now, and it's not true. I know it's not true, and I'm dreading it because I'll need to grow up properly. So spend as much time as we can with the people in our lives who might not always be there. And yeah, on the stuff that is sort of serious, I'm sick of. I've got lots of stuff and I love it, but it's an immaturity to be attached to it. I really do find that. And so I want to get rid of it and not purchase more. I think simple has got to be better for us. It really does. Unclutter the space would unclutter the mind.
It does, doesn't it?
Oh,
I can't wait to need less stuff too. Although I'm very attached to my stuff, so you don't have to clean it or move it or dust it or deal with it.
I don't do any of those things, by the way. But
I'm coming to yours.
Actually, I do. When I have a photo shoot or something there, I have to sort of clear the space out a little bit. Yeah. So yeah.
Thank you,
Petra.
And I haven't even tried the slice that you bought.
Oh, well, you can try that or have that for later. I was
Sam, go and pass it to me, just in case. Sam,
just in case.
Pass me my slice.
Pass me my slice.
Oh, I didn't.
As I say, it was a test recipe, and then I thought,
there's a bit missing.
There's actually quite a lot missing.
No, there's a bit missing since you've arrived.
Is there? Oh, there is. Who had that?
Hamish,
I love it.
Hamish, how was the slice?
I love it. It's
Yeah,
sort of
beautiful.
sort of a brownie, which I don't love brownies. I love the
Do you want a
texture. No, I'm fine. The other piece went in the car on the way up. Oh, Sam's going, yes, I want
Sam's going
some.
for it.
I love raspberry.
Frozen
and lemon.
or fresh?
Frozen from fresh, yeah.
Of course,
yeah.
because
yeah, we're
not
not in
the
that
season.
season. That's right. But, frozen fruit has been like the gift of the gods, isn't it?
Lemony,
Lemony,
good bite,
buttery.
buttery. Is this a blonde raspberry brownie?
It is. So the brownies, when they don't have the cocoa in it, are called blondies. So weird, but I do love it. It sort of means that it's got lots of butter in there, lots of eggs.
Shouldn't have. You should have. It's so delicious.
I'm so pleased I did.
Nici Wickes, thank you for everything.
Thank you so much.
So delicious. Hamish, you're on dinner tonight. Here's a book.